page 3 of the forensic audit real quick. From the South Carolina Department of Revenue compliance audit on the CPST. Really quick, I would like to talk about how they made the CPST, that's the penny sales tax, a priority during the forensic audit. We already had a CPST audit last year. We do not understand why that was a priority in the forensic audit when that's already been delved into. I had a conversation with the interim state auditor about that decision, and we still don't understand it. But regardless, if you look on page 3, the CPST was a penny sales tax that started being collected after the 2012 referendum. It collected approximately $12.8 million. What's interesting about that is more than $13.2 million was borrowed against that account and put into the general fund. That happened between 2013 and 2021. During the auditing process, the Department of Revenue did not receive any supporting documentation from the county for many of those withdrawals. I was on council during this time and even volunteered to help pull some of the information, copy it, and send it off. This information could have been pulled from the banking institution where that money was held, and it was not done. That is a recurring theme throughout the auditing process. Furthermore, in October 2018 is when things started to get interesting. $2 million was moved in 2 separate $1 million transactions from the CPST account into general funds. And we do have a ledger showing these transactions. We still don't know why that money was moved. That's a lot of money. I'd also like to point out, if you look through this audit, and once again, it's 50 pages long, the term turnover was used 5 times as a reason that documents were not readily available. I can tell you that significant turnover within the finance department did not occur until 2024, at which point between January and June of 2024, 5 people in the finance department left. Using that as an excuse as to why documents were not available, witnesses were not available, quite frankly, does not hold water. So I would like you to keep that in mind as you yourselves review this document. Any questions so far? No? All right, on page 6, of the documents missing on page 6 of the forensic audit report, 6 of them should have been very easily obtained by the county administrator. These include Palmetto State Bank statements and canceled checks for county accounts payable from the account ending in numbers 9191, loan agreements for Palmetto State Bank ending in 277, which you'll be able to see. The final official statement for general obligation bonds, series 20108. Supporting documents for a lot of general fund loan transaction for 8 years worth of transactions were not supplied. Similarly, Palmetto State Bank credit card statements for 9 years worth of transactions were not supplied to the auditor. This makes no sense to me. And then to wrap it all up, MRB, who was the company that was brought in after Rose Dobson Elliott, the former administrator, left in December of 22, they came in 2023. They did an organizational assessment findings report. I know for a fact that even though it says that those documents were unable to be provided, They were in possession of the county. There was a hard paper copy that was given to former county council chair Noah Alexander when he resigned. That was passed off, and it was actually found on a desk upstairs. It was the current administrator's secretary. Furthermore, there's an electronic copy of that that was provided to someone who FOIA'd it. Regarding the assertion that county personnel with direct knowledge of key transactions were no longer employed, when I spoke to Susan Moss in late April and early May, I sent names and contact information to her via text during that week. She did say during our more than hour-long phone call, during which point she was very gracious and very, very kind. She was brought in after the former state auditor, George Kennedy, left and was not in possession of any of the notes or interviews or anything like that. So there were some issues within the state auditor's office as well as far as continuity. On page 12. If I'd known that we had technology, I would have made this a PowerPoint, but I thought we were going to be in the sanctuary, guys, so I'm sorry. All right. If you'll go to the loan section on page 12, you'll see another $1 million in two separate $500,000 transactions in December of 2016 and September of 2019 with no supporting documentation. Once again, no supporting documentation. Airport Commission Fund loans. Loans were pulled from the airport fund beginning in November of 2017. What's interesting about that is at the time, the hangars weren't built at the airport, and it wasn't generating any real income. It stands to reason, therefore, that any loans taken from those accounts had to be borrowed from the $2.7 million USDA loan or the South Carolina Aeronautics Grant. That would not be permissible. That loan would have been pulled from those funds and put in the general fund. Once again, we have to ask, why were those documents not provided by the administrator during the audit? We should have been able to get them quite easily from the financial institution. Moving away for a minute from the forensic audit, during my time on council, I signed to close out 3 USDA grants for equipment at the airport, including a tractor that was never received. We don't have that tractor in our possession, and it was valued at approximately $16,000. Before I signed off to close out that grant, I was assured by the county administrator that money had been allocated correctly, it was in our possession, etc. I raised that issue in October or November council meeting of 2024, and then the week after, in a conversation with Airport Commission Vice Chair Chuck Platts, found out that we in fact did not have that tractor in our possession. When I asked about it and had someone from the Airport Commission come as well, at the next council meeting, I was told that we had never received it and had actually never received that money either. Shortly after that time, while I was trying to find out more answers about that, I came off of council. So that is still, I have serious questions about where that money went. Chugging along through loans on page 17, $243,000 so that's nearly $250,000 was loaned from the county E911 department to the general fund beginning in March of 2023. And in the audit, there is serious questions as to whether that amount is still owed back to the E911 department. No documentation, once again, was provided to explain. It is possible that it was a reimbursement from E911, to the general fund, but if so, it was never properly recorded. And once again, $250,000, we have no idea. Their budget, I would also like to mention, was cut in 2024, which has further hampered E911's ability to function. On page 19, we see that the county was unable to account for supporting documents for 8 transactions totaling over $4 million. Why? And then along the same vein, if you go to page 21, I'll go through a really quick synopsis of the credit card activity breakdown. There's an infographic there that you can look at. Why are we spending $35,000 of county funds using Cash App and PayPal? Those expenses, we're using PayPal to spend money in the county, averaging $6,000 per year. That's page 22. In April or May, I'm not sure which, but I do remember it was that spring, Heather Simmons-Jones from MRB, when she was brought in and acted as interim county administrator, she pulled all of the county credit cards because we had at least 19 floating around. No one knew who had them. No one had a handle on how they were being spent. We actually have county ordinances on how those cards are supposed to be used. They are only supposed to be used by department heads with permission of the county administrator. I can pull the ordinance here in a minute. It was section 1.5 and 1.6 of County Ordinance 2004-11. For those of you who are nerds like me and you want to check it out. It is clear in the minutes that she pulled those cards. That fiscal year ended in June of 2023, and that is when things temporarily got better as far as credit card usage. It got worse again when MRB left. It's been reined in again to some extent. To the full extent, I do not know. I had asked for that when I was on council and was not given it, along with a lot of other information. Many of you know about that. If you look through and see the gross amount of money that was spent on meals and travel expenses, it's clear that there is no per diem limit that is being employed by the county. I mean, we've got trips to Vegas on here with meals, $200 plus. Right now, I've got a total of hotel expenses dating back from 2022 to present. We've spent $86,000 and change on just hotels, and a lot of those I can't find any training, anything that would allow those costs. There's no documentation to back most of it up. You can see most of that on accounts payable on the website. Not all of it, but a lot of it. Lost anybody yet? Yes? All right, well, we're page 26 about. Go ahead, Todd.
How many people have been criminally charged so far?
One, and it was for $200 and change for, I believe, mulch from Lowe's. And that's it. That's true. We have a former sheriff's deputy. I was at his bond hearing. He was charged with over $40,000 of expenditures that were not authorized, including fake eyelashes, cosmetics, Amazon purchases, a trailer that was owned by the county. The list is extensive. I'm not sure. That's the best. I'm not going to tell you I know something when I don't. Yes, ma'am.
So was this forensic audit sanctioned by the state?
Yes, it was. It was put in what's called a proviso. So this was actually put into the state budget and paid for by the state. The county did not in any way pay for it.
So then why was the forensic compelled to turn over all documents?
That's a good question.
I'm sorry.
She's asking, and this might be better suited to you, Curtis, given that we've had so many issues with lack of supporting documents for these egregious charges, why was the county not compelled to produce them for the forensic audit?
I think they should have. The name of the firm is Ides Bailey.
Yes.
They were not on my radar until 6 months ago. And now they're everywhere. Now, they've been here a little longer, but they're everywhere. They're being recommended by the state auditor's office. And I've not been impressed with any of their work so far. They don't. Yes, ma'am.
And you don't know if the auditing firm you hired for this county compelled them to
I did not.
Yeah.
No, I did. The state auditor hired.
So don't you think that they should be compelled to turn over all documentation, put a lock on the building, send people up there, allow them sorting out by date? You would have every receipt, every purchase order written by him in Hampton County for the last 10 years. And then when you're done with that, maybe you can help financial institutions turn over all the statements. That's a good place to start, don't you think? So you also call them and say, thank you, turn down the block.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time understanding it, but I'm with you. I don't have anything to do with that. I'm not the state auditor. That's a different person. I'm here because I am familiar with audits and how people abscond with money. They sounded the whistle, blown the whistle on fraud, waste, and abuse for 13 years now. And I'm with you 100%.
100%, sir, but I've always been taught, you know, I have a corporate job, and I've always been taught follow the money. Follow the receipts and follow the money. If you don't have the receipts, you're wasting state money now. Having a forensic audit on something you can actually audit because you don't have that paper.
Well, how people lose, y'all, non-government employees, is always before the game starts. It's the parameters of the audit. Those things are, every audit is negotiated up front. What are you going to do for me? Are you going to audit the bottles? Are you going to audit the pens? That type of thing. And that's where the game is won. By the time you see or hear of an auditor, they've got their instructions. They know the parameters in which they can operate.
I understand that, but that's not the question. The basic question is that the state was so compelled to come down here and take a look because things are going so wrong. Why was there even a negotiation?
Well, audits are always negotiated.
Oh, I know. This is what I do for a
Yeah,
living. So
just
I'm
because-
curious why they didn't come down, and the first thing they say was turn over the paperwork.
They should.
But they did not.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%.
Okay, so maybe we should do that now.
That's why we're here, to show what wasn't done, so that folks know what we're working on.
Well, you just let me know if you need help when you get that paperwork. I will put on a pair of
Yeah.
spectacles.
The other hope with this is I know that the SLED investigation was stalled. We do have 2 active SLED investigations, one into the sheriff's department that the sheriff called for immediately upon his election, that's ongoing, and then the other one is into the county administration. The hope was that the results from this forensic audit would help spur on the SLED investigation into the administration, and of course, during an active investigation, those documents would be compelled. So we need to keep the heat on so that SLED does that. So you're absolutely right, and thank you, and please help us any way you can to make sure that they do that, because this is egregious. And quite frankly, the fact that we don't have more criminal charges, in my mind, and that is only my opinion based on what I have seen over the last 5 years, is unconscionable. I am with you 100%, and it is still my very, very ardent hope that those charges are forthcoming. Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, have we stopped the bleeding? So we know there was a problem, right? Has the bleeding now stopped?
No.
Okay. Maybe, and, you know, I'm new to down here, we've only been here about 4 years, but, you know, maybe you cut the head off the snake. Start with new processes in the fiscal year. Do it clean going forward, and then figure out what the problem was.
We tried to do that in the last election. I was on county council after a special election last year. It was me against the guys who had been there throughout this. We had 2 people before then. We haven't had a majority to be able to do that. This is not a political event. I do want to make that abundantly clear. However, you want to cut the head off the snake, it has to happen in the election booth. And I am no longer on that council. I am here because I took an oath and feel very, very compelled still, even though I am no longer a member of that body, to try and fix this like I've been trying to do for the last 6 years. But it is a lot harder to do when we are not getting information. I was not getting information. If you look at the videos on YouTube from last year after my election, August and September, you can see that I asked for contracts, for expenditures, for all of this information, and was told illegally, might I add, that if I wanted information, that the rest of council would have to vote on whether or not I would be given it. Illegal.
And the state has no authority or leverage to come in and control?
They do not. The state cannot step in on officials when they have been lawfully elected by the population within, by their electorate. They cannot step in and do anything about the results, what is essentially the results of a lawful election. And that's what this is. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Hold on, Maggie, hold on a minute. A lot of people can't hear. If you got to respond, hold your hand up. I'll get a microphone to you.
Okay.
Lee, whoa, wait a minute. Whoa.
Hold on, Lee.
Maggie, the money that was moved, like these $1 million transactions moved to the general fund,
Yes, sir.
surely somebody had to approve that. So somebody ought to have to be accountable for moving that money. So who moved it?
The treasurer moved it. The question that we have to keep coming back to is the county purchasing agreement. Just for starters, prior to December of 2024, when it changed, said that up to $15,000 could be moved with authorization from the county administrator.
A lot of difference between 15,000 and $1 million.
They didn't adhere to the 15,000. That was then moved to 150,000, which I very strongly voted against and complained about.
So is the same treasurer?
No, we have a different treasurer. She took office in June.
Okay, so there's no way to get her and say, hey, you're going to tell us where this money went? Her, him, or whoever it was?
If you'd like to try, I'd go with you.
Well,
If we could give Faye the microphone.
yeah.
First of all, that ordinance, that and the policy of which you speak, never gave anyone the right to move restricted funds
Correct.
into the general fund. So it's quite different, even if you're ignoring a policy limit about, in the procurement policy.
Yes.
Even if you are ignoring that, you're not adhering to it, or if you are adhering to it, it still does not give anyone the authority to move money from restricted funds. The millions that you're talking about were moved from restricted funds by law.
Correct.
They are to stay there. The fire fund, the airport fund, the CPST fund, all of those were moved against statute.
And the problem we've had with the statute, of course, is the statute says that you cannot move those funds, but unfortunately, while the statute says that, there's no teeth. So even though it's been done over and over and over again, and Hampton County is a boilerplate, you know, this has happened in other counties. I've talked to people in Bamberg and Orangeburg. I travel around a good bit and talk to people and have friends in other counties. In Clarendon County, this is an ongoing issue. Restricted funds are misspent, misappropriated, and no one gets punished because there's nothing in the law that outlines what the punishment should be, except in the case of the CPST, they have to come up with a 5-year plan to pay it back. That's not a punishment. And furthermore, there's no punishment if they don't do that. So where does that leave us? Here.
Excuse me, I have a question real quick.
Of course.
Hold on that, look,
Oh.
look.
I can speak very loud. So who does the treasurer answer to?
The treasurer is an elected official. I mean, who do they answer to until themselves?
So there's
The
no,
public?
there's no oversight.
Not enough. Until they do something that elicits an indictment, they can be as incompetent or, I'm searching for the right word. Yeah, as they would like, quite frankly. We can't do anything until they do something that's worthy of an indictment.
So there's no ordinance on the books that could be used against them.
There are some state ordinances. It's funny because when I became treasurer, I went through all the fights, tons of them. And you see the evolution of the law. One of the things it does is it allows the state treasurer to throw treasurers in jail. And I've always joked, I'm going to get one before I leave. It was obviously an old law, but it's still in place. And we haven't had to use it because in the past, we haven't had the problems we have now. Maggie's right. We're seeing this across the board. We're seeing it all over the place. And we're seeing things in state government we never saw before. I don't understand what's happening. But there are very specific rules about, and you'll know as soon as I say it, you can steal from the people, but you can't steal from Columbia or from D.C. If you owe a tax to Columbia, you've got to pay it. If you owe a tax to D.C., the federal government, you have to pay it. And I have not spent a lot of time in the counties. I've been kind of busy, but I've got several notes here. One, I need to write Chief Gills tomorrow and ask him where they are with the audit and volunteer help. I know him fairly well, and they do get, I don't want to say in over their head, but it is a big lift for a law enforcement agency to be heavily involved in finance. And we wouldn't be considered an impartial source, but we can be helpful. So I want him to know that we're watching, and I'll tell him about this is a well-mannered and intelligent crowd this year looking for solutions. The second thing, I've got to go back and we'll study the tax situation. Maybe I should have come upon that myself, but we're on the receiving end, so I don't think much about it. And that's at the staff level. We'll study that. Don't forget that tomorrow. I'll get a paper written on that. Where's the money? Who owes it? And did we receive it? Now, we're going to receive what the county thinks they owe us, but I suspect I have the right to audit that. And I'll know more in a few days, and I promise you I'll get on to that. You know, one of the things you have and I see this a lot when I deal with constituents. And I get on Facebook sometimes. I think we can't get around to see everybody, so I like to be on Facebook and I'll take questions. And the smartest people you'll ever meet will have a complaint. And you'll say to them, give me a paragraph. And they'll give you 80 pages. And I'm not making that up. 80 pages. Well, I can't read 80 pages. I could read 81 pagers and get something done. But that's what you get. And what's the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. What I've seen happen in other states, not so much in South Carolina, because we're behind the curve on grassroots governance. But I've seen this in other states. They'll take a crowd like this, and all of you got a husband or a wife or a girlfriend or boyfriend or a son or somebody who knows something about business, something about government, something about accounting. I mean, there are people in the community. And you split this up into, like that tractor. You put my farmer buddy over there, you put him on that tractor. Give him an account or somebody, find that tractor. It was bought from somewhere, somebody signed to pick it up, or it was delivered someplace. See, that's the kind of thing you can run down and give that to SLED. And whoever got that tractor will squeal. Do you remember about, it's probably 12 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, there was a big scandal in Columbia where $5.5 million went missing from the Department of Health and the Department of Social Services. And none of the great tools of government audit, none of the audits are almost worthless. I've been fighting for tough audits, and you're just knocking your head against the wall. But how the guy got caught, and excuse my language for saying this in a church, but a lady of the evening was paid from the money. And the policeman who just picked her up at the cheap hotel figured it out. Nobody knew what went on. And so when we all gathered over at the governor's office and we started talking about it, I realized that the guy who had done the crime, well-known person in Columbia, had been at the biggest state agency. So I asked that person, what did you find? And he'd just been there a year before. I said, well, what did you find when you checked his work there? Oh, we didn't see the need to do that. Nobody has an interest in it but the taxpayer. And that's what we've got to figure out a way, because you've got good leadership here. We'll help. There are other offices that'll help when we can. How do we break it down into bite-sized pieces? And I go back to that tractor. That tractor is an amazing coincidence. We broke up the money-losing pension plan based on somebody's calendar. I asked the head guy, I said, tell me what you do all day. Do you wake up at 2 in the morning and look at the markets in Europe and start trading, or do you come in at 9 o'clock after all that's done and start planning? Tell me what you do. He wouldn't tell me. He just wouldn't tell me. So he said, FOIA. Well, that's all I needed to hear. And from that, he got fired and left, and we went from a commission that lost $32 billion in underperformance in about 7 years to one that's actually catching up now on account. It's like that tractor. It's like some of these credit card things. If you got some, anybody here go to Vegas or got a friend who goes to Vegas often? A lot of people go for shows or whatever. We need somebody to go out. In fact, I know somebody, you know somebody, I have a friend that's had business out there. Go to Bally's, take pictures, bring it back, make it real. We find this out. You'll get your people. But we got to break it down into small bits and pieces where somebody can understand it and where a law has been broken. Because once they get caught breaking the law, they like telling on each other, especially if they get something out of it.
Maggie, I wanted to ask, someone asked who the treasurer answers to. And, but the county council should be who the treasurer answers to. At least maybe the council should be looking over. Isn't that their job?
The treasurer is an elected official in their own right, just like the county council is. We do not control each other. We're supposed to work together. I can tell you that we have had issues for years where our county treasurer was not posting payments. It was like trying to drive a ship in the night, trying to figure out what had been done over there. There was little to no useful communication between county council and the treasurer's office for quite some time. County council cannot compel the treasurer to do what they don't want to do. Once again, you go back to where's the teeth? And as far as who can get the treasurer to do anything, once again, all of us, when you're an elected official, your boss is the public, and that's where everything ends.
Well, and the other thing with the treasurer, as an elected official, there is no requirements that they be an accountant. There's no requirement, and we're actually working on that a little bit in Columbia. The coroner has to have certain qualifications to be a coroner. The treasurer has to have no qualifications. It's an elected position, which I think needs to have some qualifications with it to be able to elect it as elected official. So that's the other problem is these our rural counties don't get a treasurer that really knows what accounting is, and that's the issue we've had here too. Is no experience. Tam's looking. Okay.
Dee Dee.
Okay. So I've been to a bunch of meetings, I've learned a lot of things. Now, my question is, I recall us talking about some lamps that were supposed to go up on the exit at I-95 a while back, and then COVID hit and they never went up, but we paid for an assessment, and I know who filed for that grant, so why can't we go directly after him and find out where that money's at?
You want to answer that?
I mean, that's just an example, but.
The street, actually, the money for the I-95 lighting project is still sitting with Highway Department. It's not in the county. So that project is actually underway. They're actually getting some movement on that now. So I think we're in pretty good shape.
I think we had an electrical engineer design that, didn't we?
Yeah, I think some electrical engineers designed it that I know.
I think his name was Bill Hager when he worked with the power company.
The money was missing at one time, am I right? Or am I-
No, that was a mistake. There was some money. Gosh, what was it? Now I can't even remember. But
That was the utility reimbursement, or was it that was either that or was the earmark for the delegation that she's talking about?
yeah, it wasn't that. It wasn't that money. It was some other money. We got confused with. We were confused about it.
There was two different pots of money.
Yeah, something different. I can't remember.
Go ahead, Tim.
Curtis or Bill or Matt, are you aware of David Pasco running for Attorney General?
Yes.
Because he's put out a video of all the corruption that he's been trying to chase down for years, and he's swearing if he's elected, he is going to be going to county council meetings and everywhere to root out government corruption.
I would love for David Pasco or anyone who were to be elected to that position to come to our county council meetings.
Okay.
I will not, particularly in a non-political forum, plug one candidate over the other. But I hope that there is a lot of interest and a lot of promises that are actually fulfilled from candidates that we have that will be coming up for election next year, and that they actually follow through. Yes, sir?
Good evening. J.D. Shannon, Yemassee.
Yes,
Got a
sir.
question for you. It's kind of a two-part question. You're referring to the audit report that was released in June
Yes.
of this year?
Yes.
Okay. So this is September 30th. And the criminal investigation began when? Oh, it didn't begin. Is that right?
The SLED investigation?
Yes. Is there an
That would have
investigation
been
about this?
23. I'm not sure exactly what the date. Anyone? 2023 at some point?
Investigating Hampton County?
Yes, sir. 2 separate investigations.
That investigation began before this report came out.
Yes, it
That's
did.
right. So this report is an indictment of either terrible incompetence or complete corruption, criminal activity. Do we know anything more than they began in 23?
I don't know what SLED knows. Obviously, that would be an active investigation that I would not be privy to.
Do we know if it's still underway?
It is still underway. Both of them are still underway.
Okay. I didn't know that. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, I think we got one. Did you? Okay, I got it.
Speaking of a treasurer.
Speaking of a treasurer.
Jasper County Treasurer Mike Skinner.
So I will say that yes, we are accountable to ourselves and to the people that elect us. So that's why that election is one of the most important in the county and the municipalities. You gotta have somebody with a little integrity, with know-how. And I'm gonna throw a little shade on the treasurer here in Hampton a little bit because I know them. There wasn't a lot of enthusiasm to do the right thing. My question to you guys and Hampton folks is there a divide between the treasurer and the finance office? Because in Jasper County, our big problem isn't your treasurer. I think he's pretty good. It's the fact that the administrator and the finance officer, unelected bureaucrats, kind of force their hand and do a lot of this stuff that we can't control. And getting them fired is like pulling a tick that's dug in 4 inches deep. So, my question is there a divide between the treasurer's office and the finance office? Does the treasurer's office do the banking, and does the ledger get run by the finance office as the state asks them to?
There has been a divide between the finance office and the treasurer. I have not been on council since the new treasurer started. Also, our current treasurer, Alice Warden Wright, at one point worked for our administrator. I will detour for just a minute and say that forms of government are hard. And you and I had this conversation last week privately on the phone. I talked to Mike a good bit. County administrators have an enormous amount of power to spend money with and without council's approval. And being a council member is hard because, at least in this county, or in Jasper, you are one of 5. So when you see things that are not going the way they should, if you see things that you do not believe are ethical, it is really hard to turn that ship around. And once again, the administrator, you're right. If you have one that you don't believe is great, it is really hard to change them out. I would argue are a lot harder than maybe it should be. And I think that some of the policies that we have even made that even harder. For instance, earlier I mentioned in December we passed the county purchasing agreement where, or policy rather, where the administrator can spend $15,000. Now it's $150,000, so 10 times that amount. Y'all, we got to hear $5 million missing, $11 million loss in net position. That's like the county's credit rating. We have the lowest credit rating that you can have. And we did that with a purchasing policy limit of $15,000. And forgive me, but my former colleagues on county council decided to allow the administrator to spend 10 times as much, which I cannot agree with. Furthermore, it also puts the administrator in a place where they can even more easily be scapegoated, because even if they work within that policy, they're spending a huge amount of county money, and we don't have money, and they can do that without checking in. So to your points, yes, and more yes. Yeah.
Just a couple of things, and I want to follow up what the Jasper County Treasurer commented on. So the Treasurer reports to the people as an elected position. The Treasurer does not control the county budget.
Correct.
The Administrator controls the county budget. The Administrator is responsible for the county budget. The Administrator asks the Treasurer to move money. The Treasurer doesn't decide how the money is going to be spent.
Correct.
Okay? We know that we have problems inside the Treasurer's office also, and I'm not discounting that. I just want to be clear that we understand the Administrator is responsible for the budget.
Correct.
In a county. The other question that I really have is based on this audit, and I've read through it a couple of times, repeatedly the auditor is referencing the need, suggesting very strongly that more research should be done by the county and or the state. It's very clear in this audit that this auditor, who really had a restricted audit, it wasn't at all open. Our county has not had a true forensic audit. I want to be clear about that.
Correct.
This forensic audit was limited to really and truly the CPST funds and trying to decide how maybe they were spent. It has not been a full forensic audit of all of the operations of Hampton County. And my question is, based on the results of this limited audit, where repeatedly it suggests that more research is needed, and I think I'm quoting without looking at it, either by the county or the state. My question is, how do we make that happen? The county's not going to do it.
No.
The chairman of the county council voted 2 times not to have a forensic audit.
Correct.
So how can we cause the state to do more investigation?
Particularly once they have the missing documents, which is absolutely crucial.
And that's another question that I have. Repeatedly, the audit states that documentation was not provided. Surely there is some authority, knowing things are absolutely not kosher, that could dictate that the county provide the documentation that was requested. Bank statements, if they're not available in our records, are available through the bank. All the client has to do, and the county is the client, ask the bank for the records. Credit card statements, if they're not available, the client, who is the county, can request from the credit card company those statements. I don't understand why they're not compelled to produce them, and that's my overall question.
But, I mean, I can work with the auditor, state auditor. We may come up with another proviso to do a deeper dive. Work with Curtis Loftus, with the treasurer, and see what we can, see if we can push for a deeper audit. I'll work on that.
It's great to look back, and I understand everybody wants to know where that money was. When I moved here in March of 2022, the first job that I took was in April of 2022, and I worked for finance.
Hold the mic close.
I worked at the finance office, starting in April of 2022. 2022, and they said, I hope you like a challenge because this county has a lot of challenges financially. And I said, sure, I'm up for it. Now, challenge is an understatement when it comes to Hampton County finance. My office, I worked in accounts payable, and my office had dozens of bankers' boxes filled with paper receipts in triplicate. So when you filled out a purchase order, it went on a piece of paper. One of those pieces of paper got ripped and put somewhere, and then the other one got put into another banker's box. No order to the numbers. You just searched through boxes. So if you needed a past record of a purchase order, you went through dozens of boxes until you found the right one with the right number. Sometimes people would call and they say, hey, this is so-and-so from Public Works. We ordered a part 2 years ago. It just came in, but we can't find the purchase order. Can we get a new one? Now, like you said, the administrator is the one who approves all of the stuff that happens in finance, not necessarily the treasurer. The administrator stands for this. The bills have to get paid, just do it, right? So this is a part that should have been ordered on budget 2 years ago and paid for, but it wasn't, so they needed a new purchase order, so it was getting paid in 2022. So that's a problem, right? But this is the way things have been done here for a very long time. It's an antiquated system with paper receipts, and then the computer system that we did have, this is fantastic, you're gonna love this. Your login and your password are your initials. So I would go out to lunch and I'd come back and they'd say, oh, I took a call for you and I put a purchase order in the system. If I went and looked in the system, the purchase order was put under my initials, because everybody knows everybody else's initials. And they say, oh, I just did it to save time. So they might still be using my initials over there now. I only worked there for about 6, maybe 7 weeks before I took another job, because my wife was much smarter than I am and much better at these things. Her corporate account is astronomically higher, level than even like the taxes that we have in this county. She said, you gotta get out of there. And I think the real nail in the coffin for me was just the way things happened. There was an account where somebody got paid out, they had some kind of a lawsuit against the county, and the county had to pay them. And I was told to pay the attorney's office, and I said, wait, you're supposed to pay the person, because the attorney's a vendor. They don't get your money. You get your money, and then you decide when to pay your vendor. But they said, no, that's the way things are done. And once I realized that that's not the right way to do things, and that's, just because that has been the status quo in the past, doesn't mean that you should do those kinds of things. So I didn't want to be implicated for any of that. But like I said, you might still see my initials rolling around in county things. I might have stolen, I might have stolen that $5 million as far as y'all are concerned. Somebody could have put that under me. So my point here is, we've heard a little bit about everything, right? Preacher forgave me for that one, so I'm okay.
He's a good egg.
Was it incompetence? Yes. Do I believe that $5 million was stolen because people were crooked? No, I don't think that $5 million is missing just for that reason. I think that maybe some of it was. I can't tell you whether or not it was, not to my knowledge, but I'm sure some of it was. We can't tell you for sure either. I'm sure some of it was, right? I'm sure some of it was used for things in Vegas and stuff like that. But that's low-hanging fruit. We don't have financial records from an audit, but we have receipts for $200 or $180 or whatever. So where's the money? It's gone. They probably used it to pay the bills. When I asked for a full breakdown budget-wise, they said, hey, we still got to pay the power. We got to keep the lights on at the airport. We got to keep the lights on at the police station.
Now, to be fair, the power was actually shut off last November out of the airport.
That's because they stopped using my initials.
They stopped using your initials, and we actually owed the power company 6 figures.
We got 1, 2, and 3. Okay?
All right.
I'm trying to keep up with you. Y'all working me.
You're getting your steps in there, Tommy, aren't you?
Go ahead.
I work for the New Life Center, Alcohol and Drug Abuse Commission.
Wonderful.
And there's a state law that alcohol excise tax comes to us to help pay for services for people with substance abuse problems.
Yes.
So we are on the hook with the county for $220,000 that they have not paid us since FY22. Someone asked the question if the bleed is still going. Yeah, because since the audit, FY25, we're on the hook for, I think it's $67,000 that we haven't been paid in FY25. So my question is, so the money comes to the county from the state treasurer's office, and then it is to be sent over to us. Is there any way around that?
I believe we can find one. You know, it's a $75 billion bank, and I wish I could know everything about it, but you get into it and you just, well, let me just say this. Once I said, when I was young and naive, can I see what it looks like if we print out one of those statements? They said, well, no, you can't see that. I said, well, why not? It's taller than the ceiling. It's one account. So I don't get it all, but I'm going to find out. And I think to hear you say that money sent to you got sourced to stop, see, that's the thing. That's what I'm talking about, the small things. That's something. You can have somebody go to Vegas and just waste money everywhere, and really, you know, how are you going to define that? But if we sent a check and a remittance to the county, and they didn't forward it properly by state law, there's a lot of people who have an interest in that. Not just my office, the judicial office does. You see it with an alcohol tax.
Yes.
So DOR will have an interest in that. I mean, there's a lot to that. So again, if we break this down into smaller pieces, we can make it happen. When I look at this is just a total collapse of the business and accounting practices. You can talk about it all day long, but it's children. You know, if you give kids a can of paint and ask them to paint your living room wall, you're not going to be happy, right? The 8-year-olds are going to do it. That's what this is. So what we got to do is really move forward, but they got to have pressure. And the kind of thing you just mentioned, I'm really glad you said that, because that's something I can track the trail. I can check the statutes, and if somebody broke the statute and stole that money, they're going to have to pay.
I think we're listed in the audit on page 20.
Page 20?
The life center's listed there.
I know I saw you in there somewhere, I just didn't remember the page number, I'm glad you did. I say, this is obviously a 50-page audit, so there's a lot to digest.
And I will call the state auditor tomorrow, because we give the state auditor some sum of money from the treasurer's office. I think it's $300,000. It might be $500,000. I can't remember. And it's for audits about specific types of money. Generally, it's court fees and fines, but I wouldn't be surprised if we could throw the alcohol in it. Because what we got to do is have a very special purpose audit.
All right. Any other questions that I can take right now? Charlie?
Maybe an observation first. An observation first. When the audit,
It's not working.
Is the light on?
The light's on, but
There we go.
The light's on, nobody's home. Is that
remember that long what I was going to say. When I first read the audit, when it was published, I guess it was in June, somewhere
Late
along
June.
there, the thing that struck me across the face kind of severely was the fact that the county was going to furnish the documents that was going to be audited. That smacks me like a fox and hen house situation. Just an observation. The other thing is, and Bill mentioned it just a second ago, maybe the possibility of a second shot, deeper dive. The fungibility of money, it's kind of, there's no better way to launder money than put it in the general fund. Then what do you do with it? I think the real question that should be asked is, well, one, any criminal liability, of course. But why did they need the $5 million out of CPS that went missing and the rest of it? And we don't know that, and may never will. But the key would be to get in deeper into, the $2 million was put in the general fund, and then where did it go, and why did they need it? What did they overspend prior to that that prevented them from meeting the current liabilities and had to go, into that direction? Just a couple of thoughts.
Peggy?
Hold it real quick.
There was a meeting, I signed up to get agendas from the county. Everybody can do that. You can find out, when a commission is meeting, and so, There was a meeting, the second meeting of the Select Recreation Commission. And I wanted to know who was on that committee. And Charles thought I was crazy. But I went to the meeting. I walked in, and then if you go into the county building now, there is not a place anyone sits to welcome you in. You just kind of walk around. And finally, someone came in and asked if they could help me. And I said, yes, I'm here to attend a meeting for the recreation. And they looked at me, and I said, are you supposed to be there? I said, ma'am, the agenda was published, and anyone can go. And so then the deputy administrator comes in, and basically he told me to my face, he said, there's no reason for you to attend. We are going to go into executive session. And I said, well, Chris, you need to check your agenda because you don't have that on your agenda. And so I went in and I sat down. The thing that struck me was everyone on that committee, every person on that committee worked for a bar.
Mm-hmm.
They were county employees. No one would object to anything. And they changed the agenda, and they did go into executive session. And so when it came back, I went in, and they told what happened in the executive session. And there were 4 other companies that bid on the research for the Hampton property. But they didn't tell who they were. We still don't know who they were and they selected one. But as a citizen, if you can sign up for an agenda, and you can go to the airport commission, you can go to anything you want to.
Yes.
That's the law. And if they see citizens sitting there, they might be a little more, no?
It doesn't embarrass me anymore.
Well, I mean, I asked where funding was coming for before we had secured money through the state for the forensic audit. I asked members of council because I was not yet on that body, and then the administrator, where they were planning on getting the money for the forensic audit when the county was talking about paying for it. And the administrator at the time, who was still the administrator now, looked at me, smiled, and said, I know, but I'm not going to tell you. Linda Kelly was there. I know, but I am not going to tell you. Those few words said more to me than anything else that I have sat through in the last 5 years. That, and quite frankly, the 3 words that were put in the budget, which was debt as income. Love that. Debt as income. That's where we are as a county, y'all. Go ahead, Randy.
My name is Randy Vaughn. I have written 40-something articles on this issue. It began in 2018 when Charlie Brill and I went to a council meeting and asked them about the recreation center that was supposed to have begun in 2012. And obviously the recreation center still hasn't been built. I appreciate Curtis coming, and I want to give him a copy of a letter that he can share with Chief Keels tomorrow. Chief Keels has a copy of that. We wrote a letter to all of the state agencies that we thought would help us in criminal investigation. Copies to the Department of Revenue, the Inspector General, the Attorney General, the Governor, the Ombudsman, and the Governor's Office. We covered all the bases we possibly could. But since he has indicated that he will talk to Chief Keels at SLED tomorrow, he needs a copy of that letter. The letter was signed by several members of the HCAR group and also by 9 mayors in our county. The response to that letter that was sent to the Inspector General, we received a response, and basically what the bottom line was that the State Inspector General has no authority to conduct investigations of municipal or county governments per South Carolina code. So there's a code of law that I guess keeps him from doing that. I don't know. But anyway, the next to last line in the letter is one that I think is very important and crucial to our discussion tonight. It says, and I quote, "The findings issued in the Hampton County Forensic Audit Report are currently part of a SLED investigation." Now, to me, that means not the 2 investigations of the deputy sheriff and the former administrator, but that would have to be referring to the forensic audit. That's what it says. So that's our hope, that possibly SLED is investigated further.
Hope and hope.
Hope upon hope. Thank you all for coming tonight.
And I do want to say, too, that we, and I'm going to get political, we have lost converting some of these seats on county council by less than 200 votes. The turnout in Hampton and Barnville were not very good this last election. All we've got to do, we've got 3 seats coming open next year. We've got to find 3 candidates that are willing to stand up and say that. And all we've got to do is get a couple hundred more votes and we can make some changes here.
All right, Ms. Faye's next, and then Mike says.
Okay.
I just want to be clear too, that the council, county council hires the administrator.
Yes.
The administrator reports to the council.
Mm-hmm.
The council's, by statute, primary responsibility, the county council's primary responsibility is to protect the taxpayers' funds. So I'm just following the comment that Bill made. There's an election coming next year. Remember, your county council hires your administrator, and your county council is responsible for oversight. Keep that in mind, and remember that over a period of years, $11 million of net worth was lost. And all of these other things we're talking about, to Treasurer Curtis Loftus' point, it shows there's been a total breakdown, an absolute total breakdown. That audit continues to say there was absolutely no internal control. No internal control of operations and finances. Your county council is responsible.
Yes. I think Mike.
All right, I'm gonna get to I gotta ask a question. I did, when I was president of the state convention, executive, and president chairman of the executive council, we had to do audits of North Greenville, all 3 universities, all of the Baptist institutions. Does a forensic audit end with an opinion? What does the opinion say? The opinion either is usually one of 3 things. It is clear, it has reservations, or it is a bad audit. What did it say?
It has a conclusion.
All right, conclusions, that's basically the same thing. What's the conclusion?
Now, the conclusion is not one paragraph like yours was.
All right, what would it say? Give me the Reader's Digest version.
The Reader's Digest version?
Yep.
Basically what Faye just summarized.
No, just give me Reader's Digest, what everybody understands.
Money was spent without authorization.
All right, let me ask this question. Who hires and fires?
The administrator.
All right, well, I know when I was in that position, there were people I had to say, you gotta go.
Correct.
I mean, it was it. I said, you gotta go. And I mean, I wasn't the most popular person in the world, but we gotta have somebody for the backbone. And again, elections. Somebody's gotta elect somebody, and they gotta have some guts. I hate to say that. I'm a preacher, but I've said it. Somebody gotta have some backbone, and they gotta quit worrying about offending somebody. They got to have some guts and say, look, you don't do the job, out the door.
Enough is enough.
I mean, that's in a nutshell what we just said. All right, I got him and I got you.
Thank you, Tommy. I need a soapbox to get up on right now. My name is Mike West. I've been in Hampton for about 28 years. The first 42 years of my career with my company, I was not allowed to take part in anything like this. They were encouraged us to be on committees and all that, but not do anything that would embarrass our company. In the past 14 years, it's been apathy on my part. I haven't participated in any of this, but I continue. They're responsible. Excuse me, let me back up here. So, show up at the council meetings. Randy can look at me and tell me I'm apathy, because Randy and I have talked a lot, and I told him I was going to help him, but I haven't done it yet. But if we don't show up, or if you show up down at council, they've got to look all of you in the eye. And you look at them in the eye and says, I'm holding you responsible. If you don't do this, I'm holding you responsible. I'm going to go out and talk to other people. But all of us in this room need to quit procrastinating, and I know a lot of you are there, but let's get down to those next council meeting and fill that council chambers. If they tell us we're not there, we stay there anyway. I'm not I walked with Maggie on a picket line downtown one time, and Randy did, but that might be what we have to do to get everybody's attention. No violence now, nobody violence. We can't burn down our town.
That's right.
Please, everybody, come out and get down. And once again, I think you'll scare those people to death if they won't show up down there, because they don't know what to do. Because I've been to council meetings here, and I've been to council meetings in Greenwood, Orangeburg, Beaufort County a lot. Nobody's there. But when somebody does show up, they pay attention to what they say. My wife says that's enough. I'm getting off my soapbox now.
You gotta listen to the boss. No, Mike, you're absolutely right. We need to all be very civically engaged, showing up to those council meetings. But once again, I will impress upon you, the most important place for you to show up is the ballot box. You can make all the noise in the world, but if you don't mark off your choice, then it's, quite frankly, much ado about nothing. Go ahead, Camille.
I'm Camille Welch. I was on county council and resigned after 18 months. And I just wanted to kind of add a little something to that. What finally made me decide to do that is I was not receiving information. I have a binder full of emails that I submitted that were never answered. I also attended a Democratic meeting and was told by a representative who is not here tonight, along with several other council members, that they were okay with this representative getting, Senator, $8 million from the state, and that we should just forget about the missing money. I also received the current administrator's resume a year before I was actually elected on council. And Ms. Fay can back me up with that because I sent it to her. And someone from Estill sent it to me, and they wanted to know what I thought about it. And I said, well, it's quite impressive, but he has no administrative experience. So I don't really think he's good for the job. He has no county experience. So this has been, in the words of one of our illustrious county members, plotting and planning. The current administrator that we have, this wasn't a fly-by-night thing. This was a year at least in the plotting and in the planning. So this isn't something that just happened because, as I said, somebody from Estill sent me his resume a year before he was even on the scene. So.
Mary Benton.
Maggie, you alluded a minute ago to using debt as revenue revenue. I just cannot understand that. I'm not in the high finance
They were
world.
referring specifically to the TAN, the tax anticipation notice.
I know, but how can that be? I mean, you know, I get a Social Security check and I get my retirement. And if I go down, as our illustrious administrator told me to, when I asked him about the TAN being used as revenue, he told me it was like a payday loan. And I'm going, wow.
With a
I
heck of
mean,
it, with
what
a
an
heck of an interest
insult,
rate.
what an insult to taxpayers, talking about a payday loan. But like I said, my retirement, my Social Security, if I go down and make a payday loan, that is not revenue. I just cannot understand that. Is that new math?
I think that's new math, but the math ain't mathin'. Of course, that tax anticipation notice, if you're talking about the one from last year, also came with a 10% interest rate.
Yeah, so that doubles down on what you're owing. I mean,
Absolutely.
I just don't understand. Are these people not qualified, or I mean, you know?
Are you asking for my personal opinion as to
We
whether or
know
not
the
they're
answer.
qualified?
We know that. I'm just talking about as a citizen, when you manage your finances, you have to be very particular. And I would never add a payday loan to my revenue or income. You know, I mean, that's ridiculous.
I would certainly not do that either. I cannot explain the logic as to why that happened, because I think it is absent.
Is that common for counties to do that?
No, ma'am, it is not.
As a former CPA, the debit is to cash. The credit should be to a loan that you owe. But income is also an account that has a credit balance. So they can balance the transaction and just lie about it's not a loan, it's income.
Yeah.
And it's plain as day, if you look on the website, where they added the most recent 1.8 million as revenue, in addition to the ad valorem taxes and the fees and whatever. There was 4 or 5 sources of revenue, and that $1.8 million TAN. And he was also very condescending to me when he referred to me as his mom. Yeah, I mean, and I'm like, well, son, that stuff about a payday loan. Yeah. Okay, my son says that's enough for mom tonight.
And we're here talking, we don't have any definitive answers, but we want everybody to see what's going on, and we got to keep working at it. We got to keep working at it. And it's getting kind of late. We can stay here all night if you want to, but I don't want anybody to think that we're...
Let's let Quincy ask one more question.
Thank you. To the state, I was just curious, is it possible for the state to take over the finances of Hampton County? And if so, what would trigger that possible takeover?
We don't have that provision. Other states do have that provision. We don't have that provision. We should have something like that. They have it for schools, but they don't have it for the other. It's interesting, somebody mentioned the $1.8 million TAN. I need that number.
That's for this year,
Yeah, that number was given me today by an interested party as cash. So I want to find out more about that. It is, before we get too much further, there is some good news. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But as I sat here, I started Googling some of y'all and the treasurer's unclaimed property. It's goody. You and your family have money. If I can help you get it, let me know. We owe almost $1 billion of money to South Carolinians. And you know why we owe y'all $1 billion? Because every one of you thinks you're too smart to have any money at my office. But it happens all the time. We owe a family in Myrtle Beach $1.5 million. We owe a professor at the Citadel $490,000. I've given little ladies this tall, 95 years old, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's an amazing thing. Average person has about $700. Your family has 4 checks for over $100 each. We don't put the exact amount. It could be $1 million each. Yeah. But when you get home tonight, if you go to the state treasurer's website, make sure it's actually our site. You'll see my pretty face. Search for yourself. Search for the pastor here. Search for the church, because everybody can have money, and you should look it up. And so I did want to have a little good news tonight. But you got to make this quest fun. You got to have some fun in making the county right, because otherwise it's drudgery. You got to split it up in the things you know about. Let the ag guys worry about the tractor. Let the finance people worry about it. Split it up, break it down, and go to it. And I'm going to help you. I owe Mike a lot of help. He's got the same problems the rural counties do, but we just have to do what we can do. And I'm looking at these audits. I mean, like I told you, I'm on my 12th or 13th. I'm a little bit confused. I got 2 more to go. I've never had any of this. I mean, my book's reconciled. We had $52 billion last night. We reconciled to the penny, and I keep getting investigated. And we have this stuff where they're going to Vegas.
We didn't even get into some of the good stuff.
Yeah. So y'all to do this. I think this is a good thing. I can't tell you how impressed I am that people came here tonight on a pretty evening and want to do this. And we can do it, but you got to make it fun, and you got to have a goal. You've got some good leadership in the room. These guys here, I'll get you through a lot, and I'll help you any way I can. And I've got my list of people. I got to call the state auditor tomorrow. I got to call the head of SLED. I got to check on the county taxes due from Hampton County. I got to look at this booze fee coming back here. I got to call the inspector general. Talk to him all the time because he's always in the office. Cleared me every time, but it'll happen again. And I want the New Life Center lady. I want to make sure I get your phone number.
So excuse me, sir, just one last thing. You said that you came all the way down from Columbia today.
Can you put the microphone close?
You said that you came all the way down from Columbia today. It was a beautiful day. You told us that wonderful story. May I ask why you're here today?
I got invited, and I've been fighting fraud, waste, and abuse, not just in South Carolina, but from here to The Hague and back for 14 years.
Okay, so then you told us that we should take little bites, right? Get a little bite, and you get a little bit of information, and that rolls over. So I'm taking my bite. My bite is challenging you to make sure that the state puts pressure on the auditor that you paid for to go back and get all the documentation. And if that doesn't work, for you to reach out to Ms. Mace or somebody else to help us get that so we can figure out where that money went so it doesn't happen again.
The first conversation I have is say, all right, it's going to be, why are we hiring somebody from Iowa? And they're popping up everywhere. I want somebody that we can go see. We have plenty of auditors right here in this state. And if you have to go to Raleigh, if you have to go to Savannah, that's okay. But they've got to be here.
Yeah, but I have to tell you in all honesty, sir, I just scanned through that 51 pages, read 75% of it. If my secretary wrote that and put it on my desk, I would fire her tomorrow morning.
I'm outraged by it. It's awful. It's inconceivable to me that this passes. The government auditing is not good. Every time I catch myself saying that my office has got tons of clean audits, because we have, the treasurer's office is just one thing, but we have a whole bunch of subsidiaries, like tobacco authority and stuff. I'll say, we've got all these clean audits, and I remember how little it takes to have a clean audit. And that's the problem. And for 14 years, and this is why I'm always in trouble, I've been saying our audit structure is not good enough across the country and then here in South Carolina. We should empower the state auditors to go find fraud, waste, and abuse, because if we don't, they won't find it. And the counties, especially smaller counties, half the people are related to each other. You know, there's some inbred difficulties here, but we can do it. But we have to do it. And again, here, you and your husband pick something y'all know about, work with Maggie, and take that bite. And if we get 10 or 12 different groups taking that bite, and then you get help from the state, you can bring the place down. You can stop it. But if you go at them all together, you lose every single time. They are ahead of you every step of the way. What they can't take is you looking behind the curtain. And that's what we have to do.
And the treasurer did mention that we can, through the Department of Education, we can audit the school boards. And Fawn Petalino is a member of the House with me. She's in a rural county, same issues, Clarendon County. And we are looking at some legislation to try to introduce some legislation to make it easier for the state to look at this stuff. There's some states that do it. We're looking at their legislation, and I'm working with her to try to put something in proposed legislation to fix that. So,
But does that really work? Like, okay, so you used examples of auditing the school board, right? So Jasper County just audited their school board, and they were taken over by the state.
correct.
But the woman that they put in place runs around and calls herself a doctor, and she graduated from SC State, and when I looked at her LinkedIn page, she has an EDS. She's not even allowed to be called a doctor, but she signs everything doctor. So there's a fraudulent person taking care of the fraud that happened 6 months ago. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm of course, I represent Jasper too, and I've been involved with all that situation. It's crazy what happens. I just saw an article yesterday. The superintendent of schools in the largest school district in Iowa was an illegal alien. Has been here since '99 and worked his way into superintendent of school. Largest school district in Iowa was an illegal alien, and ICE picked him up yesterday. So it's crazy. But anyway, we know we didn't have any real good answers, but we just want everybody to know we are working on it.
No, it was one of the Dakotas, South Dakota. Yeah, South Dakota.
The state auditor.
The state auditor hired them. However, I will say, remember when I said that the county was originally going to try and pay for it? They were going to pay for it by misappropriating funds to find out how funds had been misappropriated, which is a really fun conversation. This is actually the agency that they had chosen as well. Bill went up and had a conversation with the Inspector General, had a conversation with the state auditor and he asked them not to use this company because they had already been talked to by our county administrator. The bid had already gone out, there was already interest, but they went forward with it anyway. We were not involved in that process.
Okay, so how much did we pay for nothing?
$227,000 and change.
MRB actually had a South Carolina firm.
Yeah.
MRB actually, when they were here, they actually had a South Carolina firm. I was on council at the time, and the South Carolina firm was ready to start the audit. They were ready to do it.
I will raise hell tomorrow on that phone call. I know what audits cost. That is not a $225,000 audit. I will let you know what comes out of that.
That's why he's here.
I'm telling you, it's outrageous, and you have to know there are very few representatives who will stand up to this type of thing. It's the cult of the people in power. And to go off script here, I worry about all this talk about Donald Trump and Charlie Kirk and all these other things. Good people are all. We live here. This is where we live. We can't worry about all that, because I can promise you the best ones of them aren't worried about us. It is us. And so I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I ran into Mike here, because I owe him a phone call back today anyway, because I gotta help them. But we gotta make it work. And the fact that we went out of state 1,500 or 2,000 miles to find somebody to do a lousy job and charge us $250,000 is outrageous.
The state did. It was put in the state budget last year.
You're still a taxpayer of the state.
Yeah, I mean, you still pay
You
for
still
it.
pay for it.
Bill, and it's a good starting spot, and I appreciate you getting that done. We gotta move past that.
That's right.
Bill, one thing real quick, you mentioned a minute ago about trying to get the supervision under the county and municipal governments as the school district currently have. That's a great thing, needs to be done. The other thing, maybe to try companion into that, is to strengthen our sunshine laws, and maybe some of this stuff can get headed off before it gets done. I suspect a lot of the plotting, planning, and execution, this was done in executive sessions, which is probably the most abused statute in the South Carolina Code, but there is no penalty for any violation of that statute or the FOIA Act. So something along that where we put some penalty would be a
No, Charlie, you're absolutely right. And I mean, I've talked with a lot of people in this room, Charlie being one of them over the last 6 years, about just how egregious the FOIA violations have been on behalf of the county. It is beyond the pale. I talked earlier about being blocked from contracts and important documents and information that I needed as an elected official to run the county, and was blocked from that. And before that, Bill and I, when I was aide to the legislative delegation here in Hampton County, we both sent in FOIA requests. They were denied. I even sent them from my county email. Denied. Sent FOIA requests from my private email. I know a number of people in this room looking around who have not received responses to FOIAs, who have received very incomplete responses to FOIAs, and quite frankly, who have received really snarky responses to FOIAs that were uncalled for and ridiculous. Go ahead, Faye.
Well, when a council member in the middle of an open public council meeting at which a representative from the South Carolina Archives Division is at council, and a council member asks, what if we don't want to answer FOIA? What's the consequence? And that representative said, there is none.
Yes.
There is no consequence for not answering FOIA. He then paused and said, now you can be sued, but there is no consequence for governmental officials refusing to provide public information. That definitely needs to change.
Absolutely. And by the way, that was revisited later by that same council person when we got into talking about contracts with the sheriff's office regarding cars in particular. That was not a one-off. It was an overarching theme, not just with that one council person either. It was a few of them. To which I responded, if my hairdresser wants it, you should have to give them the contract, just so that we're clear. Anyone should be able to get any active contract that the county has signed off on. It is federal law. The fact that they don't care and have no intention of starting to care should alarm everyone in this room. All right, go ahead. One more.
Yeah, thank you. So one word I haven't heard in here, but I think everybody's been talking around it, is accountability. That's what I think a lot of people want, myself certainly. How about the Office of the Inspector General here in this state? Do they have the power to investigate this?
I don't think so. It's for state government. They should.
Why wouldn't the Office of the Inspector General of this state have the power to investigate this?
It was just the way the statute was written. There are good models out there. There are Missouri, I know some of these state auditors, I've all done trade group with them. Some of these groups go out and find fraud all day, every day. In South Carolina, we don't do that. And we should do that. We have a weak state auditor's office, and
Inspector General deals only with state officers, and if I remember correctly, I just got school boards recently, and that's the limit of it.
Back in, I think, 1972, they passed the Home Rule Act, which gave local counties autonomy, it's been, some of that's a problem. It's been downhill ever since. Up to that point, the legislative delegation was responsible for county government. After that, we don't have any authority over county government, so.
Thank you.
Time to wrap it up, guys?
Yeah, we gotta get the treasurer back up the road, and, so it's getting late, and I appreciate everybody coming. I know it's not what you wanna hear, but we're working on it.
Reach out to me or Bill. Most of you in here have one, if not both, of our cell phone numbers. Oh, I can't say no to Miss Libby. I'm sorry?